I have another video on my series on manliness and heroism. This was a quote from an English writer, Douglas Jerrold, talking about what basically the definition of manliness. I'll read this to you. The superior man is he who develops in harmonious proportions his moral, intellectual, and physical nature. This shall be the end at which men of all classes should aim, and it is this only which constitutes real greatness. I agree with this quite a bit, actually. It seems like a really simple statement. It seems like a almost inadequate definition, but there's actually a lot to it. So I'm going to start with the specifics about the three things that are mentioned specifically, and I'll break those down a little bit. So he says a superior man will develop his moral, his intellectual, and his physical nature. Let's start with physical. So in the manosphere, in the red pill, in the whatever communities you guys are calling it these days, the men's help type channels that are all running, one of the things that comes up in almost every reply, anytime a man says, "Hey, I have this issue," the first answer, get in the gym. "Hey, I can't find a girl," get in the gym. "Hey, I'm having trouble with confidence," get in the gym. I think it's no secret that there's a certain inherent physicality to being a man that's expected. And it's very hard as a man to command any kind of respect whatsoever if you don't at least have a level of physicality that shows that you're capable. Now, capable of what is not necessarily as pertinent. That might vary depending on the circles you run in. For example, when I was in the military, what it looked like to be considered a capable man there was one thing, and in the trades it's another thing. When I went into white-collar work, it was something entirely different. But there was still an underlying assumption that the physical nature of my being was going to come to call in the job that I performed. And if I wanted to command any kind of respect in that job, then I at the very least needed to present a physicality that was capable of performing. I think we all know this instinctively too. A lot of men maybe don't recognize we do this, but I challenge you to consider it the next time you walk into a room full of strangers. And men walk into a room and they size up the other men as a matter of instinct. Like I said, you may not even notice what you're looking at, but once it was called to my attention, I recognized that I was looking at men's hands and shoulders and necks and eyes. I was looking at their hands to see if they showed strength, scars, busted knuckles. I wanted to see if they looked like the hands of boxers. Basically is a real good indication of someone's physicality and their ability to cause damage. Looking at their shoulders, because your shoulders are an indication of power, but they also are a really good indicator of your psyche. So if you walk in with your head down and your shoulders slumped, you look pretty sad. And I don't mean sad in a like you're looking at tears kind of thing. I mean sad as empathetic. But if you stand up straight and you pull your shoulders back, one of the things they teach you when you first join the military, there's a certain amount of confidence and power that comes just from that stance. In fact, in many different sports, they have what they call a power stance. And part of what that is a firm base with strong legs, standing on both feet with your chest up and your shoulders back. The intellectual nature that we need to develop, on some level it's pretty obvious. We need to be capable, we need to have knowledge, we need to learn skills, we need to be aware of the world around us, and we need to know how to interact with it. So intellectually, we need at least a bare minimum of ability. But one of the key elements of men who I've known in my life that I've considered masculine, good examples of manliness, and people that I looked up to, people that I thought were heroic, every one of them had an insatiable need to continue learning. My grandfather on my mother's side was a farmer, and my dad was a college professor. My dad said that my mom's father was one of the most impressive men he ever knew because he never stopped reading. He knew how to fix things. He acted as an accountant. He was his own veterinarian. He grew crops and animals, and he fixed his own equipment and all those things. And what that was it came from a place of understanding that he understood there was always something else to learn, and there was always an advantage to knowing more. Even if that knowledge never directly came up to help you in life, having it never hurts you, and the pursuit of it in and of itself is a strengthening factor. The other part of your character that is mentioned in this quote is developing your moral character. And I think this is probably the most important. I know this is the most important because you can be intelligent and dangerous. I know some people like that. Prisons are filled with really smart people with bad moral foundation. You can be very physical and impressive and just as dangerous and evil. So it is most important that you have a good moral foundation. Now, mine is based on Christianity. I am a Christian man now. I wasn't always. I came to that through a lot of study and a lot of reason and a lot of questions. But what I did understand, even when I wasn't a believer, was that there was a need for men, well, for everybody, but we're talking about men specifically here. There was a need for us to develop our moral framework so that we understood how to behave in the world and how to react to the situations that present themselves. And when I was not a believer, I was searching for what is right and what is wrong. I think it was very clear that all people groups throughout history have had some notion or some sense that there's something bigger than us that binds us all together. And all these different groups had different ideas of what that was, or who that was, as it were. But the crux of all of those explorations was that underneath it all there was a universal morality. There is a right and there is a wrong. And in future videos I may dive into some of those things specifically about what's right and wrong. But I don't want to get too out of the weeds in this one. But what I will say is that there are some things that are considered universally right and wrong. And at the very least, you should find out what those are and pursue them and embody them and meditate on them until they become a part of who you are, and until every decision you make is run through the framework of your understanding of right and wrong. The last part of the quote here says, "This shall be the end at which men of all classes should aim, and it is the only which constitutes real greatness." And I don't see how actually anyone can really object to this. It's a broad statement to say that to be a good man, you need to be morally good, you need to be intellectually developed, and you need to be physically capable. I think that's a pretty good minimum list. Achieving those three things does not necessarily make you great, but you cannot be great if you're not aiming to achieve those things. So, just want to encourage you guys. I want to give you some ideas. I want to give you some philosophical frameworks that you can apply to your life. I'm going to do this continuously and keep putting up videos. I'm going to do this series on these quotes and these different men and masculinity. But I'm going to do a bunch of other types of videos too. I'm going to actually do some tutorial type things, teach some skills so that I can help with that intellectual and physical nature development part. I'm going to keep talking about philosophical and religious elements of life and masculinity and how those are intertwined. So I'm hoping that in some way I can maybe be a bridge to bring you from where you are to a place where you're in real pursuit of these three aspects of your life. I would love nothing more than to see every one of you become great in your own estimation. So look forward to more videos. Please just, if this is helping you out, give me a little bit of feedback. If there's anything that this brings to mind, bring it up and I'll look into it and maybe make some videos on that. But I look forward to some interaction with people. And, you know, I'm doing this for me, but I'm also doing this because I know there's a lot of men out there that could use some encouragement and maybe a voice of reason from someone who's a little further along in life and who's been through some bumps and bruises, and maybe I can help you avoid some of those. Anyway, love you guys. I'll see you next time.